Unremarkableness is everywhere at this moment, and all of us are attempting to find a path of least resistance. We're making a decision about ourselves. Suppose there are 10 individuals here, and all of us are fair, yet I'm above average. I now believe I'm extraordinary. We surround ourselves with people that encourage us, that tell us what we want to hear. The second we put ourselves among the exceptional, we don't like that feeling, that difficult feel. Think of that person who wakes up at 3:30 in the morning and says, "Hey, put your shoes on, we're going for a run." We don't like that challenge. We like that person who says, "Hey, man, I don't feel great today." And they say, "Oh, it's okay, brother. We'll take the day off, maybe get a pizza, and watch the game." We like that. We love that feeling. Why? Because you understand, man, we're good, brother. We don't want that person like this. "Hey man, no brother, get your shoes on, man. Quit being a troublemaker." We don't want that in our lives. We don't want that person who's continually challenging our weaknesses. We want that person who's continually making us feel nice and good and getting our own. That's the mediocrity of life. We want to be the best among the average people. Wonder, how do you stay hungry all the time? Because after I accomplish something, I don't sit back like a lot of guys who graduate buds, graduate this, graduate that. They settle in. They wonder why I'm getting weak, man. I don't know. I lost my edge. What's going on? Because once you hit the top of the mountain, guess what happened? You think, "I'm great. I'm great." So you wonder why you're tumbling down now. Because once you're at the top of the mountain, you've got to build another. That's mediocrity. There are a lot of people in mediocrity who have a nice resume, but they're one-timers, man. They hit a one-time deal, they busted it open, got a lot of money, but they're done. You're mediocre now, man. What are you doing today, tomorrow, the next day? That's why I don't listen to talkers. I don't listen to all that bullshit. I listen to people who are like this. "Man, what's going on, man? Tired, fella? Why are you tired?" "Because tomorrow I've got to do the shit again." Whatever the shit is that made me queasy and sick to my stomach, it made me hurt. There's no ending. And that's the person I listen to. That's the person who's gained knowledge. You gain knowledge through suffering, and on the other end of suffering is a world that very few have ever seen. It's a beautiful world because that's where you find yourself. You don't find yourself in here, you find yourself on the other end. Like the 100-mile race I was on. I ran for 24 hours. I found myself on the other end of that race at 19 hours. I found, wow, there's a whole different world out here that never even is. But the world's to you, and that's what all that mediocrity is about. Mediocrity is contagious. Most people live their whole lives without ever thinking of being great. They idolize all the greats but consider themselves mere mortals, and that's precisely why greatness escapes them. They move it towards some unapproachable plane, impossible for nearly anyone to reach, and it never even enters their minds to go for the gold. No matter what I'm doing, or which field I'm participating in, I will always go for the gold. I know that we are mere mortals, and greatness is possible for everyone if they are willing to seek it out in their own soul. In plain terms, greatness is a state of letting go of all your faults and imperfections, scavenging every single piece of strength and energy, and putting it to use to win at anything you put your energy into, even if someone out there told you it was impossible. It is a path pursued by those rare souls willing to stretch themselves ridiculously and pay the cost. In the late 1950s, Captain Joseph Kittinger was a pilot in the Air Force tapped for experimental flying and skydiving duty in New Mexico. He wasn't a household name. In fact, hardly anyone knew anything about him until August 16, 1960, when he donned a red pressure suit and boarded an open-sided gondola fastened to an onion-shaped helium balloon. He flew that rig nearly 20 miles high until he reached the thin atmospheric line where everything goes from blue to black. He stepped out to where the horizon didn't exist, far beyond all previously known limits. Suspended at 102,800 feet, he unhooked his harness and dived to Earth. His drop lasted nearly 5 minutes, his maximum speed was 614 miles per hour, and he descended over 80,000 vertical feet before his parachute opened. This was no Red Bull-sponsored event. It wasn't a TV show. Kittinger wasn't a performer. He was an explorer, a seeker of a new realm for the world. His flight and his jump helped make manned space flight possible and also, for himself, a discovery. I don't jump to Earth from space, but I know that atmospheric line between blue and black. The glimmer of greatness runs right through the human soul. We all have it. Most of us will never see it because getting there requires a willingness to stretch yourself to the limits with no guarantee of success. Of course, success is just another mile marker on the journey. Landing the jump and walking away while lighting a cigarette as if it were a regular day at the office made Kittinger look cool, but it didn't make him great. His willingness to do it in the first place, knowing that the chances of failure were high and all that it cost him, made him great. It wasn't a stunt to gather fame or publicity, it was simply an attempt to see what was humanly possible. Can we redefine ourselves? It can feel impossible at times since we live in a world filled with arbitrary boundaries and fixed social lines that are as thick as the walls around a fortress. Worse, we allow those walls to limit us into many ways. The programming starts early, and it starts at home. The people we grow up with and the conditions we grow up in define who we think we are and what we think life is about. When you're young, you can only understand what you see, and if all you are ever exposed to are lazy people content with mediocrity or who convince you of your own worthlessness, greatness will remain a fantasy. If you live in the ghetto or in a dying industrial or farming town where buildings are boarded up, addiction runs rampant, and the schools are a mess that will factor into the possibilities others imagine for you and you imagine for yourself. But even privileged people can feel shackled by their circumstances. The vast majority of parents don't know what greatness looks like, so they are unprepared and unwilling to encourage big dreams. They want their children to have security and don't want them to experience failure. That's how limited horizons get passed down from one generation to the next. Should we really be surprised that almost everyone has a knack for twisting their story to work against themselves? I hear it all the time. Privileged kids say, "I have too much, so I can't develop the skills that you have." The kid that came from nothing will tell me, "I don't have enough, therefore I can't develop the skills that you have." No matter where someone is in life, they never fail to explain why they can't get where they want to go. The moment they open their mouths, I see how limited their perspectives are, and their sad narratives come with the expectation that I will deliver a become great package to their front door. But that's not how it works. When I was losing the weight, I had to miserably get up every day in the cold because it was Indiana in November when it started. I was miserable. This is your new life. Live with it or without it. And it turns out to be real hard. That hard truth is what led me to no longer want to be at the bottom of the barrel. I didn't want to live in that lie of comfort that so many of us wrap ourselves in. Instead, I chose to face the ugly truths, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was like walking into a gale force wind every single day, but that's exactly what it takes to change. You have to face the storm, not run from it. Facing these challenges is about confronting everything you fear and hate about yourself and the world around you. It's about challenging every excuse you've ever made. It requires a relentless, unwavering pursuit of your true potential. It requires becoming obsessed with your own improvement to the point where you're willing to endure continuous discomfort and push beyond the familiar boundaries of your existence. This journey isn't glamorous. It's filled with sweat, tears, and sometimes blood. It demands sacrifice and a level of honesty with yourself that can feel brutal. But this brutality is necessary because, without it, change is merely superficial. Only by diving deep into the parts of ourselves that we're most afraid to confront can we emerge transformed. The mentality of blaming others, the external locus of control, only serves to keep you stagnant. If you always shift the blame to something or someone else, you'll never have to take the difficult steps toward personal growth. You'll remain where you are, comforted by your excuses but trapped by them too. To break free, you have to shift to an internal locus of control. You need to believe deeply that you have the power to change your circumstances. This belief isn't just about optimism, it's about taking concrete steps to make things different. It means setting goals, facing failures, learning from them, and adjusting your strategies. It requires resilience, grit, and a commitment to never give up despite the setbacks. When you start taking responsibility for everything in your life, you empower yourself to make the necessary changes to improve. This shift in perspective can lead to breakthroughs in how you live, how you work, and how you relate to others. It's about moving from victimhood to victory, from passivity to action. In the end, the transformation journey is about reclaiming your power. It's about refusing to let your circumstances define you. Instead, you define your circumstances. When you do that, you not only change your life, but you also become a beacon of hope and strength for others. You show what's possible when you refuse to accept the status quo and instead fight to create a reality that reflects who you truly are and who you aspire to be. This is the path to not just surviving, but thriving. In conclusion, the journey of self-improvement demands confronting harsh realities and embracing personal responsibility. Shifting from an external to an internal locus of control is crucial, empowering us to change our circumstances and achieve personal growth. By facing our fears, challenging our excuses, and taking concrete steps toward change, we can transform our lives from passivity to action, victimhood to victory, and ultimately lead a thriving existence that inspires others.